I'm Farhan Dalla, transformational trainer, and welcome to Elevate Your Life, a transformational podcast, an invitation to take the journey towards your deepest self. It is my intention to inspire you to connect, move, and meditate. We'll tap in, tune in, and dive in, and together learn and reflect from authentic, real, and transformative conversations. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. My guest today is Rizwan Jagani. Rizwan was here on the second season of my podcast, and we had such an impactful conversation. I'll never forget it. I wanted to have Rizwan back to follow up on his queer journey, as well as ask him a lot more. So, Rizwan, hello.
Hi Farhan, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I spent the day at the gay beach today, so I look a little crisp.
Oh
But
my God.
yeah, it's a heat wave here in Toronto. It reached like 40 degrees Celsius, and yeah.
We're in the beginning of a heat wave here too, which, you know, being from the subcontinent, that region of the world, it's not a big deal, but it definitely makes you feel a little lazy. So I
Right.
just enjoyed having a lazy Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. Here in Toronto, we have a beach called Hanlan's Point, which is a safe queer space where I like to go with some friends when the sun's out. And yeah, so it was a great day. Can you believe it's been 2 years since our first chat?
I still cannot get over that because like when it comes to the fact that we've been together, like how do I think about it? Like we've been connected for so long
Hmm.
since because of that conversation, and it just feels like time has flown. And in a way, like I also feel like I've known you my whole life, and that just feels really special.
Yeah, and I was going to say also to echo what you just said, since then we've developed a beautiful friendship. I want to say deeper than that. It's a brotherhood. I call you my bi, which I love. My queer South Asian bi. I love having a queer South Asian brother that
Mhm.
I can talk to about all kinds of queer things and topics that we can.
Absolutely. No,
And then
it's
and then we have the South Asian thing in common, and we get it when we were talking about culture and
absolutely much
events
of which will be discussed today, which I'm really excited about.
and I'm going to go in deep, right? So just
Yeah, let's do it.
well, first, before we get into all that, you've had so many accomplishments in the last 2 years. I mean, let's start off with the fact that I can call you Dr. Rizwan Jagani now. You you completed your PhD. You are a doctor of musical arts in viola performance. That's the name of the degree. Congratulations again. I'm super proud of my bi, and what a huge accomplishment. What does it feel like, and what did you do to celebrate this huge milestone?
Um, so after my final recital, which was like the last thing I needed to do as part of the degree requirements, I went and visited my grandma in Pakistan, my maternal grandmother.
Hmm.
I remember a few years ago, she said she wanted to see me graduate, but she's 96 years old,
Oh,
mashallah, mashallah.
yeah. God
But
bless.
so we're not putting her on an airplane. Mm-mm. I
Probably
can
not.
fly, she's gonna chill.
Right.
So I went and hung out with her. I even took my graduation robe with me and we took pictures together.
So
It
sweet.
was very special to have that moment with her. And then came back and had a party with my family, which was really, really sweet. And now I've kind of just been like first of all relaxing, trying to relax a little bit, but the artist life can be a little bit hectic. So
Well, you haven't stopped. I mean, let's talk about it. Well, first of all, you've performed with Grammy Award-winning artists like Dwight Yoakam, Burna Boy, and then recently the Indigo Girls.
yeah, that was just a couple of days ago. Yeah, I play with the Fairfax Symphony Orchestra, and they do pops concerts in their season as well at Capital One Hall, which is about 30 minutes from where I live in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. And one of the groups that they did the collaboration with was Indigo Girls. So we had a Thursday afternoon rehearsal, Thursday evening concert, and then a Friday evening concert. And I had actually not heard of this duo. They are um, not only are they incredible like American folk rock type groups, they're also gay icons, which
Yes,
is
yes.
amazing. And I realized that during the concert, and then I did some research the night after the Thursday night concert, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I was with gay icons during Pride Month and performing with them, and now I listen to their music, and I will say. there was magic in like the symphonic orchestra version. So when I listen to the originals, it's like, oh, come on, I miss the strings. I miss that heft that the orchestra brings. But it's still like special to have had that moment with them.
So this is your idea of resting, Rizwan? Like you're just milestone after milestone, and I love it. And I love you to death. You know that, and I'm super proud of you. Everything you've done since we've met, and even before that, is incredibly admirable. So I will I will
Thank
always be cheerleading for you.
you.
Um, yeah, and some of the things we talked about were your struggles in our first conversation with sexuality, being a Muslim, your relationship with Allah. And then at the onset of Ramadan in 2023, you made a post that grabbed me, which we talked about in the first episode. And by the way, if you haven't heard it, I definitely recommend that you do. I'll post the link for that episode so you can have a listen. But Rizwan, you came out in an Instagram post that just grabbed me where you described your relationship with Allah had being strained. And then after you came out, you became even closer to Allah. So that was about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
What would you say, or how would you describe your relationship with Allah today, and what has changed?
I think right now I'm in a different phase when it comes to my spirituality. I've been trying to sort of understand differently what the faith means to me. I think, being born into Islam or just any faith, the way you learn it is primarily through your parents, and it's primarily through the environment that you're in. And then going through this queer journey and trying to find intersectionality between those two was a journey in and of itself to even get me to a point where I feel like I could still call myself a Muslim and be, not straight, for the lack of a better way of putting it. But now I'm also trying to discover what the religion, what faith, what spirituality, what all of that means to me, kind of separate from how I've been raised. My mom is very religious, like very religious. And I think a lot of times that because of her level in her faith, she wants me to almost match that at times. And so I try to find this balance where like I want to find my own space for religiosity and not sort of imitate and respond only to what my mom is asking me to do. And but I feel like I have a lot more clarity on it because in talking to many people, I've learned that this is not like a queer Muslim thing. This is just a Muslim thing. And it just felt good that I could also sort of release myself from, these inhibitions about, where my faith and where my life intersect. I think right now with where I'm at in faith, I call myself more like a spiritual Muslim in a way, and just like a spiritual being,
Mhm.
because I just try to find energy in the world of what's surrounding me and connecting Islam to it. Um, And then I also, I struggle with like a lot of the basic things that Muslims struggle with, like, praying 5 times a day. Like I mean, it's easier than it's like easier than what we make it to be, but there's life and everything. And like, then I just,
Mhm.
can kind of take a little bit of a breath and be like, okay, it's not just me. Everybody has this problem every now and then. And but I just feel a lot more at ease with my faith. I think right now the biggest step for me is to ground myself in what the faith means to me as opposed to what it is has been in somewhat of my upbringing and even into where I'm at with my family right now.
And from our previous conversation, you did your best to stick to the rituals and the practices and breaking fast on time. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and initially when we talked, you had a bit of a love-hate relationship with Ramadan. Um, and you didn't feel like you deserved the blessings because of who you were, and then you had to come to terms with all of that. So there's been a few Ramadans since then. More recently, not too long ago, we just went through Ramadan.
Yeah.
How did your relationship with Ramadan change? And did you set any queer intentions this Ramadan?
So I love Ramadan now. There's just something special about this month. I mean, I've always loved it. Now I feel like I have a new love for it just because it's also great to see how communities come together. And in the area where I live in, like I'm, a stone's throw away from the larger Virginia community, which is filled with, the Arab diaspora and the South Asian diaspora. And there's a lot of fun things that happen in the spirit of Ramadan. Like there's night markets, there's, food things that happen at night. So, getting to be a part of that, I think there's something special about it. And then, of course, there's also like with the idea of what's been going on in the world and the activism of it all, surrounding our brothers and sisters overseas. Um, There's a lot of unity that comes with that as well, that I think also further puts the community together. And what better than during Ramadan? For me, I think Ramadan actually this year was a little different. I was in the middle of preparing for my final adjudication. So I was working on, if I wasn't working, like, playing with orchestra or whatever, doing a gig, which I had many during Ramadan. Like I think second day of Ramadan, I had an orchestra concert and I had to do it while I was fasting. Like I literally had like 30 minutes left in my fast when the concert was over because it was a afternoon concert. I was preparing repertoire for my recital. So my intention was to keep my faith so strong that I could power through my fasting and still prepare what I needed to do and do what I needed to do to the best of my abilities. And, at sometimes I thought, like, should I just not fast because I'm in the middle of preparing for this recital? I got sick at one point, so I had to stop. But once I got better, I was just like, no, I feel good. Allah has given me strength. And this is also the test. This is one of the tests in the faith. And during that time, it's like, can you still be superstar violist in Ramadan and set the intention through your spirituality there? And I think that is actually what made me feel so strong with the faith. Um, as far as queering my Ramadan, I did a lot of outings with with like the queer Muslim group here in DC. There is one, and we had like weekly iftars. So one evening we all went out together to a restaurant in DC. It was an Indian restaurant. We did a side by side collaboration with an Indian queer organization here. We did like a potluck. So I brought like this really good like Asian inspired salad because I was just like, we didn't get enough greens in Ramadan. We need to have our fiber. Um so it's been really good, and I have community through that too because we were all able to sort of, break fast together in a space that felt safe for us. And I think there was just something special about that, and also still being able to balance, crazy musician life and finding ways to just sort of make myself feel more spiritual during that time.
Your dedication always amazes me and still does. You do a much better job at it than I do. Um, so you mentioned that you're more, or you identify yourself as a spiritual Muslim. What have you been doing to find yourself spiritually recently?
Recently, I've been getting a lot into sort of Sufi practices. So I've been reading a lot of like Rumi poetry and obviously like Sufi style music that comes with it. And being a musician, I feel like music is one of the ways I stay close to God. Um, There is also a living Sufi saint named Wakar Fez. He's based in Houston, Texas, actually. And once a month, some of his students come to this area to do meditation sessions. And I've been doing meditation sessions with them since November. I had to take a break here and there because of traveling, and also they went on a brief hiatus. So I didn't get to see them recently until like about a week or so ago. And there's something powerful about doing meditation and not just like, like sitting in a room and trying to, find absolute focus through silence. This is kind of like a guided meditation that they like have prescribed for people in those settings. And it's just really interesting to like sort of go through it and then sort of interpret what one sees in these meditation sessions and sort of setting intentions from that. What was just very interesting was I went into the meditation sessions back in November thinking about, what I wanted to achieve from them. And then I had this lapse in between. And then when I went back, the one of the students was like, "You have a little bit of like strange intention with your work or with what you're doing." And I talked to him about it after, and I realized that in where I'm at in life, trying to figure out who Rizwan is, not being a student of school, and also trying to balance this spiritual faith journey, there can sometimes be a little bit of dislodging. And that's a human thing. Like,
Mhm.
sometimes we forget about one intention when we're focusing on another. So it was a very interesting way of sort of regrounding myself in a completely different way and kind of just being more conscious to what I'm doing in life. And that is, and then like because of that, I guess just life, the way it works, I've been meeting a lot of people who are very spiritually focused. And sort of it really is cool to meet people and talk to people who use that as their way of sort of setting intentions. So that's been my biggest thing, like sort of like leaning into a bit of a Sufi sort of meditative. style of practicing things.
So, in addition to meditating in the group, do you practice daily on your own, or is it just a group practice that you're
More in the group
doing?
practice,
Hmm.
because they kind of recommend not to do it on your own so you don't like confuse yourself essentially. Like there's like years of study you kind of have to do to understand what some of this meditative practice is, which I can respect that. Um, but I just make it a point, like I do some prayers at night and I try to, stick to my 5 daily prayers as well and kind of like make it a point to take walks and sort of reflect on things and, you know, combining all these different elements of what it means to sort of be spiritual.
Yeah, I have a meditation practice myself. It's about an hour and 10 minutes every morning before I go to the gym. And then I do a walking meditation as well, post workout. And I think that's important to have a mindful practice in general. Having it with spiritual intentions is even better because it does have incredible benefits, especially when you do it with intention, as you said. So keep me posted on that. I'll be curious to see, how you grow and evolve in your meditation practice. And I'd be happy to talk to
Absolutely.
you about mine sometime as well. So you've been out now for about 2 years, would you say? 2.5 years? Yeah. And I have to say, I've been watching you closely grow into your queer self. There's been huge growth in your confidence, in your body positivity, in your expression, in your style, in your fashion. We talk about that all the time. We
Yep.
bounce off things off each other in terms of like what we're wearing and for certain
And I
events.
love that so much about us in that regard. Yeah.
You can always talk to me about fashion and meditation. Like those are two things that are,
Yeah.
you know, things that I'm passionate about. But how do you feel your identity has changed or evolved in your queer journey since we first spoke?
Hmm. I feel like I'm a little bit more grounded now. I kind of feel like when I came out, there was a lot of sort of, I like to call it fake it till you make it energy, in the sense of like, okay, now that I'm out, okay, what does that mean? A lot of things changed, like relationships changed, dynamics changed. But it also means how do you handle like the emotions that come with it? And I told my cousin this once because he was like, "Oh, you could have handled things differently with your coming out." And I said, "Look, I don't know of any sort of instruction manual or guidance book on how to handle these things. There's also just this whole, Western queer culture and Eastern queer culture and how to navigate these lines." So a lot of it was sort of learning what different things meant for me, being more out about this part of my identity. For better or for worse, people already knew about this before made it more public. Um, and people were like, "Oh, we already knew," and I'm like, "Okay, thank you." But in the sense that I kind of just feel I'm a little bit more grounded in who I am, and I just think of it as a part of me and not like a main defining factor. Um, with that, now a lot of growth has also happened in the sense of understanding what queer spaces are. What it means to be in a space where you, as not a straight individual, are the majority, and why there's importances of those places. I think if you asked me last year, I couldn't give you an answer about why that was the case. 1 year later now, I can actually understand, the importance of these spaces. So just I think my worldview has changed, and I just feel like a little bit more of a whole person. I kind of feel like before I came out and even when I was starting this journey, like I was trying to like build this puzzle that was me and the pieces were just not fitting. And now I feel like the pieces are fitting better. And it's just a bit of a relief. I mean, there's constant work in our personal journeys, but there's also constant reflection too and seeing where we can go from there. And I think, I just feel a lot better about where I'm at in my journey right now. I just feel a lot more grounded. I feel a lot more put together.
Hmm. I'd agree with
And
that.
and I think I've also just stopped putting so much stock into not what other people think, because yes, what other people think does impact your life indirectly or directly. But I think it's just sort of I filter through whose views are directly going to affect me, whose are indirectly. And then I just gravitate more towards places where I feel safer, with people I feel safer, and spaces where I can have these kind of conversations. And I think I'm just more alert about that now.
And one thing that I have to say that you are doing far greater than or better than I did when I first came out was understanding your individuality, and not being completely, okay, yes, I'm queer, that's a part of me, but it's not all of me. There's other sides to me, and you storytell that really well in so many ways.
Thank
When I
you.
first came out and I tried to find my safe spaces, I thought I had to be like other people in that community, dress like them, listen to their music. And it's kind of easy to do that because you want to fit in, you want to belong. You finally find people who understand you and that side of you. And you think your job is to be like them. And then so you end up with just another identity crisis. I'm like, this doesn't work for me. Yes, I'm gay, and maybe I have that in common with other people in my safe space, but I don't have to, dress like you and listen to the same music as you and go to the same places as you. Like, I lost my individuality for some time, and it took me a while to sort of figure that piece out and, own that.
It's hard because I will say, especially in a city like DC, being in like trying to preserve your individuality at times can feel a little bit lonely
Hmm.
until you find a community that sort of welcomes you in its own way. I'm not one of those gays that like to go out to bars and clubs. To me, if I'm going to socialize with people, a bar with loud music is the last place I want to be. I'm not necessarily one of those gays who binge listens to Britney Spears. Um, Now I do like my Nicole Scherzinger because of Sunset Boulevard, so maybe she's a gay icon in her own way. I don't know. There's always a
Right.
lot of discourse surrounding her,
Right.
but I listen to different music. I dress differently. I mean, yes, I do dress sometimes stereotypically gay in terms of like when it comes to like Pride Month, but I am my own person with little facets of the culture, but like it's not that I'm trying to put me into the culture. I'm trying to bring like the surroundings to me. And finding people who resonate with that element is so tricky
It's very tricky.
until you find those people.
Hmm. Yeah, because sometimes they're threatened by your individuality, and
I definitely think that's the case
yeah.
because it's this idea of, that need for the community, and I totally understand this because this idea of feeling like, you need to find your people. But and then this is again the whole, which I know we'll dive into, like this whole East versus West idea of queer culture. When like, when you're trying to get into these different communities, you also realize that visually you don't fit in. Forget what is on the inside. And so that further perpetuates this identity crisis that can happen at times.
Hmm. And but you're navigating it really well, so
Thank you.
it's
Thank
true.
you.
One of the things we talked about in our first conversation was how you were outed. You wrote a letter to an actress named Stephanie J. Block, to thank her for interviewing a co-star from Into the Woods that she was on with. And this co-star was on our podcast, and on their episode, they talked about God and sexuality, and that was something that you were struggling with at that time. And there was a platform for that conversation that I guess resonated with you, and you wrote a letter of thanks, and ultimately you were outed when your mother read the letter.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. And then you kind of struggled with that relationship. You also mentioned that you had talked to your dad and, had the conversation with him. Your relationship with him improved. You called him or described him as like your best friend, and you could talk to him about anything. And so it's been a couple of years now, and I'm kind of wondering, what is your relationship with your parents like now?
It's good. It's good as it needs to be. I think over this time I've learned that, and I think it's just in general that no relationship is perfect, period. It doesn't matter what kind of relationship it is. With me and my parents, um, I think sometimes they still struggle, especially when, um, like they're around other people who might be getting married or whatever, or like their children are getting married or like they're having a grandkid. Again, all of which are things that can happen with my life,
Hmm.
but maybe just not the way they're used to it. Um, Where I'm at with my parents now is very different in the sense that they are okay with me, they accept me, but they don't like outward displays of queerness or any sort of semblance of queerness. My mom is also just a very conventional woman. So for her, she doesn't think that men should be wearing anything other than like black, blue, brown, and those
Gray,
color
yeah.
palettes.
Mhm.
Um, Very conventional Pakistani woman. So that take that and then like, all these other elements that can be terms of expression. Like if I want to wear like, something a little bit edgier or something more colorful, or, I wear a shirt that is like gay coded in that regard, it is definitely something that I see her like, her face changes, and it's taken me a long time to realize like that's her, that's not you.
Does she
You could
comment or say anything about it?
sometimes
Like,
she
did she say
used
to you,
to.
don't wear that? Or the
She
reason why I
used
say this, and I wanted to actually, it's funny this is coming up here. So
Yeah,
I'll ask you your advice on this. But
absolutely.
yeah, so I have a family wedding coming up, and I sent a picture of a shirt that I wanted to wear to one of the ceremonies to a particular family member who shall remain nameless, but they know who
Absolutely.
they are.
Okay.
And the comment I got was, I don't want you to wear it. I don't want people talking or commenting. I don't want any drama. You should wear something Indian, which is what I got in my WhatsApp. So I did not respond. I waited a week and then I called them and I expressed, I was very hurt by that comment. I felt like my feelings weren't taken into consideration and that I wasn't going to wear what was expected of me just to please other people,
Sure.
right? And then there was no apology other than I was told, do whatever you want. So,
I know
I,
that feeling. I know
right?
that.
So I
I know
knew you
that.
could relate to this. And when you were talking about this, I thought, this is a good time for me to talk to you about this. Like, and so, and I'm years ahead of you in terms of how long I've been out and, with to my family and everything. It's been over 20 years now. But basically, I'm asked to go back into the closet or wear a mask, and that makes me very uncomfortable,
I understand that.
and it's very hurtful. So, how do you handle these situations with your mom, I guess, when you're wearing something edgy or and I know sometimes you'll message me and send me a picture and go, should I wear that? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
My answer is always yes for the most part, right? Like I might give you some advice on, what color shoes or something.
Yeah. No, I think okay, I think there's different ways of approaching it because I try to look at also from like situation specific. Like with a ceremony, for example, like I don't know if there's a dress code. Like if there isn't a dress code, if it's a
Right.
religious thing, like if it's a religious ceremony, maybe strike a balance. I That would be my thing.
Hmm.
Um, and then like, go full edgy for for the reception sort of thing. Like I think trying to find maybe a balance there because that's
Right.
where I've had to do. So sometimes like with my parents, like sometimes confession, I'll like wear something out of the house and then like change in the car
Oh
sometimes.
my God, I used to do that. I used to do that.
I've done that a few times. Nowadays, like if I wear a shirt that says Pride or whatever,
Yeah.
I just tell my mom, I'm like, I'm wearing this. Just deal with it, please. Um, and I'm like, no one here knows me that knows you. Then you can, I mean, people know anyway. So it's like, what are they talking about?
Right.
Um, like with my edgy, especially when it comes to like some of my concert attire with like my like lacy kind of shirts that I've worn, I just go for it. I like to, I mean, I just say like, I want to feel like a rock star on my own stage.
Right.
So I go for it. Now, for example, like when I did a religious piece for one of my programs, I actually wore a blazer on top of the lacy shirt. Then I took it off for the rest of the concert.
Hmm.
So I think trying to strike balances is important sometimes, just because I think, we want to feel like we can exist as our true authentic selves. But I also like to think that, maybe not every situation that we are in deserves to see our true authentic selves. And it's not necessarily this idea that, we're trying to hide ourselves. In the sense, it's like rather than hide and like, trying to feel like we have to, repress, I think it's more this idea of of like recontrolling the narrative. Like, who do we feel deserves to see the full picture, the full package? And if these are people that, don't necessarily see eye to eye with everything about you, then they don't need to see the full picture that you can so beautifully present to people who welcome that. And I think that's one of the perspectives I learned recently in the sense like, for example, with acceptance doesn't necessarily mean that someone's gonna like something about you. Like if one of my best friends did something that he felt like was really good for him, that may be something I just don't agree with ethically or I just think is a bad idea. I can express my feelings about that, but I have to accept that if this is what he feels like he needs to do, he should do it. And that's where I've been with my parents, that in the sense that they accept me, but they may not necessarily like everything that comes with it. And that is something I kind of have to be okay with in some cases. Maybe that'll change. So I think in this situation with the wedding attire, I think it's more a matter of, where do you find that balance in terms of, if it's a religious ceremony, or it's like maybe okay, maybe they want you to dress a certain way for the religious ceremony, and then for the reception, you can kind of go, hey, here's me. But if it's people that you also feel like, okay, maybe I want to go and support the bride and groom, but I just don't necessarily feel good with the rest of the people in that area. It's like, you know what? They don't need to see the full Farhan. The full
Hmm.
Farhan are the people who deserve to see the full Farhan. And it's not, it's, and I wouldn't think of it as going back in the closet. It's just a matter of what outfit you're putting on that day. Literally speaking, it's like, what side of you are they going to see? Is it the side that they deserve to see, or the side that, I'm protecting myself. I don't need to also give them something because they don't need to see it.
Okay.
It's
That's a
been
different
very,
perspective, and I appreciate that. I guess to
absolutely.
my shock, I didn't think of what I was wearing as edgy at all. I mean, it was just a white shirt and it had a little cape on the shoulder or something, like a little detail,
Yeah.
but I guess it was too gay for some people and they got up in arms. So we'll see.
I
I
mean,
think
I mean, if it is a religious ceremony, if it's still conservative in that regard, but it's just
it's
edgy.
actually not a religious ceremony. Otherwise,
Okay. Of
I wouldn't, I obviously I would respect what I wear to my Jamaat
Yeah,
Khane or my Khane, and
course. Yeah.
and even then the shirt would have been totally appropriate for that.
I want to see it regardless because I'm
You,
sure
you're
you
going
have.
to because I show you everything first anyway
Yes.
for the most part.
Then
Um,
I would just say,
yeah, yeah.
people are people, and if you want to wear it, I think go for it.
Hmm. And I think at the end of the day, the energy that I project is going to be the most important thing. So I think regardless of what I wear, the vibration that I'm emitting in whatever I'm wearing is what people are going to feel the most.
That
And
is very, very true, and that's something
so
that
that's very intentional as far as like, I start my day with saying, okay, today I want to radiate joy. I want to radiate peace. I want to radiate happiness. And
yeah,
that's irregardless of what I'm wearing, it has nothing to do with it. And so this is a time of celebration and obviously families coming together and, you know, a joyful moment for us. I'll definitely make sure that my intention is aligned with the event itself. And I think what I
absolutely.
wear is going to be secondary to that as far as what I want people to think and feel. How they land with what I vibrate is up to them, and I have no control over that. And I'm not interested in, micromanaging other people's energy and vibration. So I'm
It's
definitely not going to
wasted
do it.
energy.
No,
It's
exactly right. So I won't be worried
wasted
about what
energy.
other people think or
Yeah.
whatever. You know, I always say what people think of me is none of my business. So,
Yeah.
right. So this year you attended World Pride.
Mm-hmm.
So amazing. And it was in DC, practically in your backyard, right? Like not too far away.
Right.
Um, and again, another major accomplishment, you performed with the International Pride Orchestra. I mean, come on. What was that experience like?
So this was my second year performing with them. I performed with them last year.
Hmm.
And this was sort of like what I hinted at earlier about the importance of a queer space. Because last year I was just like, why is there a queer orchestra? What does that mean? And when like it was good music with great people, but I didn't understand the connection. And like I went through last year kind of, just doing it, going through the motions, meeting people, playing the music, having a very funny onstage moment with Peaches Christ, who was our MC drag queen. And then this year, it all just clicked. it just clicked, where it made sense why this was important, why we needed to have a space where we could all celebrate, make music together, be our true selves, feel like, my experience could be a shared experience with somebody. And I got to talk to so many people this year, even people that I knew from last year, but it was so much more deeper, much deeper conversations. More just sort of like, being on the other side of 1 year and where that 1 year took me. Um, and I mean, also just being able to wear whatever I want. Like last year, I wore just a slightly edgier version of what I normally would wear. And then this year I went full much more edgy, like, went sleeveless and, I had like a kufia tied around my waist because I wanted to make a statement. And so whenever we do our entrances to go on the concert stage, they play the RuPaul song "Sissy That Walk." So last year they did it and I kind of just walked on, kind of like like vibing, if you will. And then this year, I just went full force. Like, I had another scarf in my hand and I was like waving and I was just like kind of doing a little dancing walk sort of situation. So I felt so much more at ease in what it meant to be expressive and to be in a space where that expression was welcome. And then to make music with everybody, we were all united through classical music. All of our various colors of who we are as human beings, all of our different experiences were united through the music we were playing on that stage. And that was like one of the main events for World Pride that I was a part of. Like, I didn't go to the music festival. I did go to the parade and I got to see David Archuleta perform. I got to see Cynthia Erivo
Amazing.
perform, which was amazing.
Oh, amazing.
But but to me, Pride was the orchestra performance. That to me was it. It just made so much sense. And it just further represents this idea that, like as much as it is a celebration, it is still a constant protest and movement towards just wanting greater change, not just for the queer community, but for everybody who has ever
Worldwide.
felt,
Yeah.
and for everybody who has ever felt oppressed.
Hmm.
And what better than to do it through art because art has always been political. So that was such an incredible experience. And then the cherry on top was that this year my parents attended.
Wow. Okay.
And I didn't tell them about it last year. I told them I was doing a diversity orchestra workshop and concert, which is not a terrible stretch of the truth, I would say, because pride is diversity. Um, but this year, because it was in home turf, and originally we were supposed to perform at the Kennedy Center when our lovely president took over. He basically changed a lot of internal structure and basically censored a lot of what was going to be permissible there. And we were one of two groups that were barred from performing there. The other was the Gay Men's Chorus of Washington, with whom we collaborated for this concert. Because of that PR, my parents had sort of heard about it. And so when I told them I was going to my concert, my mom was like, "Are you going to International Pride Orchestra? Like, are you performing in that?" So obviously at that point I wasn't going to hide anything. And I told them like, I think you guys should come for this concert. You'll go to the Kennedy Center, you'll see National Symphony perform, and it'll be a concert. But I'm performing in this concert, one. Two, there is an importance for this concert, and it'll be something that you've never seen before. So I had that conversation with them within about 30 minutes. I ended up buying them two tickets and they came. And I'm just very glad that they don't know anything about gay culture or just like, some of those little hidden nuances and meanings of things. Um, they liked the music. There was a
Okay.
piece in particular that I told them about that I think really drew my mom to wanting to come. And then, of course, I feel like every concert needs a drag queen.
I was just
Maybe
gonna say, was this their first time seeing a drag queen?
I think so. I think so because again, like their
Well,
only version of queer culture was like what they've seen being in the States.
right.
In like, social settings, but not like, we're normal human beings at the end of the day. I still think that maybe they struggle with the idea of like queer expression again. So like maybe seeing like a masculine presenting individual wearing a dress. And then I kind of put an Uno reverse on them and said that, if a woman can wear a suit and that's girl boss energy, why can't a guy wear an evening gown? Um, so I feel like, we kind of find very weird ways to talk about this, but I think at the end of the day, it was a really good experience for them to come. And now because of that concert, actually, I feel like I can be a lot more open with my parents about what spaces I'm going to be in. So I feel like I can tell them bluntly, like, I'm going to a queer music night or I'm going with the queer Muslims today. Like, just, I think that just helped a lot with that. And I think, World Pride to me at the end of the day was this. This was like a huge thing for me. And that I think I couldn't have asked for a better World Pride.
I think that's great and it's beautiful. This year, I'll be attending Pride with my nieces and nephews and family members for the first time ever as well. So,
This is
and
amazing.
you probably thought one day, the idea of your parents being there or family members was nothing but a dream. But here it is. It's happened for you and it's happening for me. So it's amazing to see how far we've come. And in your case, so soon. And it is a sign of you know, hope for anyone out there that's thinking that they don't have their family support and the idea that your family could join you one day at Pride, it is a possibility. And if it can happen in our families, it can happen in yours. So,
I agree. And then I think also at the end of the day, I think, putting all the expression, the camp of it all, that's all like stuff on the top. At the end of the day, we're all the same human beings. We just love differently.
mhm.
We just express differently. At the end of the day, we're no different. And so I think having conversations like this, having um situations where we can have this dialogue with our families, it almost sort of normalizes it more. And so we can, and that way it's just something extra that is celebrated. A friend of mine told me that, like, it's just another reason for your parents or for your family to love you, and I thought that was just beautiful.
I love that. Nice.
Yeah.
So you've had a few prides, but what does pride mean to you today?
Ooh, a big chunk of it has been, I think a big chunk of it, first of all, has just been the protest element and just understanding that, like especially in the United States, it's a mess here. Between like Supreme Court rulings, what the president is doing, what people say, our trans brothers and sisters are always under attack. And and the thing is, I think we've lost sight when it comes to Pride sometimes that we are too comfortable with it being a party all the time.
Hmm.
And that, like, if one element of our community is attacked and if we don't speak up for it, there's no stopping from, like, us being victims next. So, and then the intersectionality between, like, what's happening in Palestine and everything. I think, having that, this is what I was leading with this year, big time, that we can celebrate where we're at now individually, collectively, but we still have to be loud about the fact that people are still getting hurt, that voices are being silenced. And I've always considered myself as to be somebody to lend my voice to somebody that just does not have the volume for their voice to be heard. And I do that just by my existence, but I do it through my art. So like last night I performed with at an organization called DC Saba. It's like a music and activism organization, and last night they had a queer night. So I was one of the opening acts for that. And I curated a very sort of queer focused set that was very introspective for that. And so for me this year, it really has just been sort of like the never-ending sort of, not battle, because battle just has a negative connotation, but the never-ending journey of
Hmm.
just wanting something better for yourself, for the people in your community, for people everywhere, and celebrating those victories along the way, and doing so in a way that you feel empowered by the work you're doing.
What I'm hearing you say is almost like your mission and purpose has found you through your queerness and how you've used your music as a form of bringing joy and beauty in this world, but now also as a form of activism for our community and the way you are showing up in this world in your authentic self, as your authentic self, um, and performing at events like Queer Pride, or sorry, Pride, in the queer orchestra, but also, for queer nights and whatnot, you are representing all of us through the arts and using your skills and talents to bring awareness to where we still need to support those around the world who are in need, and including in the United States, like you
Yeah,
mentioned, our trans brothers and sisters. So I love that for you.
absolutely. Thank you. When I came out, I thought a lot about like the little version of Rizwan, or like who would see me and maybe find a little bit of hope. I think, that didn't occur to me what that would mean until like now. What they don't tell you when you kind of put yourself outward into a queer community or any marginalized community is that you automatically, almost in a way, become an activist. Um, and I had this conversation with a trans activist recently that, no one tells you that. No one tells you that, once you come out as queer, you kind of are in a group of people that is usually on the receiving end of not very nice things and is usually a center force of activism. Because I always see it that whenever, if, for example, if it's like immigration rights, um, Palestine, or any group that has always been marginalized, the community that always shows up is the queer community. And it's amazing to be part of be part of a community that, not only celebrates but also fights.
Mhm.
And I've, being Muslim in the United States, I've been microdosing on oppression my whole life, essentially. And so I've been to many a protest. I've been to many a vigil. I've been to many like an event of where like, there's speeches and things many times. Now I think it's very interesting to see how all of these worlds are kind of coming together. And it is something to celebrate being an American-born South Asian queer Muslim. That's like such a cool thing to say. But it also means that I'm in a demographic that, has a lot of not a lot of friends all the time. So it just means that, I find more people and we can all come together. Like, and we find joy in that too.
Mhm. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Where do you find yourself in queer culture that surrounds you?
Ooh. I wouldn't call myself a misfit, but I definitely find myself gravitating in various different spaces at times. I definitely do like the side that listens to music and dances and, maybe wears like the 5 inch, 3 inch inseam shorts and the sheer tank tops every now and then. But I also love musical theater, so
I was
I
gonna
definitely
say the theater nerds, right? Or
I was about to say
yeah.
I'm a very proud theater gay.
Yeah.
Um, like and that's definitely a community full of vibrancy and color and
Hmm.
beautiful people. I've met some really good friends because of theater. And even just in classical music too. Classical music has a bit of a queerness to it. It's just it's just a little dialed down because of the way the industry is. But I find my people through that. Um, so I think even my where I find myself is very intersectional. I do have South Asian queer friends. I just don't interact with them as much, unless it's like a group setting. Um, I think for me, it's just that also
Is that because of the gossip culture that you and I talked about in the first season?
gossip culture is part of it, but also I think maybe it's just bad dating. But a lot of like queer Desi guys that I met have been quite entitled, and maybe there's a little bit of that of me in
Mm.
me as well. Maybe I'm just not aware of it. I ask my partner all the time. He's like, "No, you're not entitled." Um, but it's just that this I think some of it sometimes just comes across a little superficial for me,
Mm.
and I don't want that. I want to get to know people. I want to be with people. I want to share energy with people, and I want to be in communities that allow that. So the theater community has been the biggest fun, and I think a lot of it is because we like the same music, we like the same stuff, and theater community is equally a gossip community in its own way. So I guess the brown auntie and me like live for that. But yeah, that's where I find myself in terms of like queer culture and queer community. I mean I also do love a good, RuPaul's Drag Race episode. But I'm definitely not, like I don't listen to a lot of the queer music. I think I come to it quite late. Like I'll learn it on the viola if I need to because it's like popular, but it's not something I regularly gravitate to listen to.
Yeah, I think I'm still trying to find my culture. I think I'm still evolving and finding my groups. So, and I love the fact that you are part of that, community for me.
Yes.
Um, do you have any allies, and are any of them South Asian beyond the queer community
Hmm.
or outside of the queer community that
I mean, I have family members that I can talk to so freely now. Um, about like in fact I've even like I mean it was Eid weekend, the same weekend as Pride here. So I went to the parade in the morning and then went to a dinner party at night. And my family was like, "How was the Pride parade?" And I was like, "Oh, I saw David Archuleta," and they were all jealous. And I was just like, "We not have a good time." And like I appreciate that I can even talk to you guys about this so openly. Like my
right,
parents are in the next room, and I'm
right.
talking to my cousins and my aunt about Pride parade. Um, the immediate family that at least know my story, yeah, friends as well. Um, but I think, I have teachers that are also really good allies, especially my teachers in Texas. Like every time I go to Texas, I visit friends, but I visit my teachers more. Just because they have been at like not just pivotal parts of my musical life, but even just life in general. And they're some of the first people I've talked to them about my queerness and like also like how do I navigate queerness in professional settings.
Mm.
So I would definitely say like my teachers, close family members, and have friends as well. And like, never underestimate the power of a good ally, that's for sure.
Yeah. Or of a queer South Asian brother as well. Yeah. I mean, it's
Yes.
true. Like, when I think about how you sort of support and push me along in different ways, like, I mean, I think it was probably because of your encouragement that I wore a Speedo for the first time in a long
Yes.
time.
And you carried it off great.
Well, thank you. I mean, I wore them before, in when I was on swim team, so they serve a very, important function for me, like athletic wise. But I
Yeah.
just thought it was kind of weird to just be standing around in a Speedo if you're at the beach. Like, most of the time I wear something square cut. And I
Yeah.
had a lot of peer pressure from friends who were like, that's too much fabric. And I was like, oh my God. So I spoke to you about it. And yeah, so mission accomplished today. So
I mean, it's great because like I think, but I mean, at the same time, like, again, that's another thing with the culture. Like, where do you find your balance on whether you want to
mhm.
wear more clothing or less clothing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Giving
So
yourself
that's
that
where the individuality is that, I talked about as well, right?
exactly,
So,
and allowing yourself to have that autonomy. You chose to wear the Speedo because you wanted to wear it, not because other people asked that of you.
oh, the pressure was on, I'm not gonna lie, but
But you know what? You did it for you at the end of the day, and
I
how
did.
do you
Yeah.
feel after that
Yeah.
experience?
No, and I loved it actually. It was great. I have
Good.
a couple now in my closet. So,
Love it.
Rizwan, you are very much in love. You mentioned your partner, Steven. You've been together for a couple of years. When we first talked, you were just gushing about this guy. And I've been following along your journey, your stories, chatted a little bit with the two of you. What has love taught you?
Oh God. Uh, yeah, I think you asked me a version of this 2 years ago, and I still don't know if I have an answer. But I think in the sense of like it has taught me like a different type of growth.
Hmm.
Like a growth that can like I know they tell you like, like be show so sure of yourself before you involve someone else. Like, the whole RuPaul quote, if you don't love yourself, how are you gonna love someone else sort of thing. And I think that kind of also forced me to continue loving myself so I could, have a partner that I could love. It also meant that having a partner and love is a collaboration. It's not just like, what you see in like movies. Understanding each other in your own personal journeys, whether it's like, with school or with life. Both Steven and I are into fitness and we're both in different points in our fitness journey. And we struggle with different things, but it's also like offering the support where we can. And sometimes also understanding like, our partners with each other, we operate differently. Sometimes we just need to operate autonomously, and that's also fine. Um, but also just he's such a great guy, and I love him, I adore him, And, he has just brought a different confidence in me. And I know that I've brought a different confidence in him too. We have both been able to sort of encourage each other to be the best versions of ourselves. He's now like my family loves him now.
Mm.
I think my parents still like, I'm sure they would. He's gonna hate me that I'm gonna put this on a recording, but he's like, I'm sure my parents would wish that he was like a Stevinia and not just a Steven, essentially. He hates it when I call him that because he's like, there's a female version called Stephanie, and I'm like, but your name has the V, so you're Stevinia. Um, but in that regard, like, I think,
Well, we could put him in drag and
oh my God,
just
he'd hate us for
show up
that.
and eat in drag. Can you imagine?
God.
You want a
Um,
Stevinia, you got Stevinia.
exactly. But I think in that regard, he like we're at a point where like, we're traveling together, we're doing a lot of things together, we're spending time together. And like when the honeymoon phase goes away and then like, you're kind of like going through life and then like, sometimes the honeymoon phase comes back. So it's just taught love is general like has taught me about, what it means to be with somebody, but also like, this also continuous journey of loving yourself in the process.
Hmm. And I love seeing the pictures of whether it's an Eid celebration, seeing him dressed up in, a shalwar kameez
Looks good and he looks
or
good in Shalwar Kameez.
yeah, or attending a Christmas celebration. So just the union of the celebrations and how you sort of brought them all together and found a way to support and celebrate each other through the holidays. It's just beautiful to see. So I'm so happy for you guys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your obsession with Tony Award winner Nicole Scherzinger. I mean, how many times have you made a post to try to get her attention? And I want to say your
Yeah.
obsession is almost like mine for Ricky Martin, but nothing comes close. Like, I mean, I'm sure Ricky Martin and I have shared a previous life together, and my love for him spans decades. So I think that I'm, slightly more
Oh
obsessed,
yeah,
but you're a close second for sure.
yeah. I mean, I don't know, like, cause I mean, I knew Pussycat Dolls and I would that, but
Right.
I think I really just I think I was familiar with the material of Sunset Boulevard, which is the show for which she won the Tony, and
Hmm.
actually it's the first show I saw Stephanie J. Block in. So there's another connection. I think it's just the way like she has brought her artistry herself, and it's very meta in that regard, like where she was in her life and like how her life lends itself to the material. But I even see a lot of myself in her portrayal of this character. And this idea of like, you're trying to prove a point as an artist of who you are to the world, and the world's not listening to you. And I felt that way a long time ago before I started my doctorate, because I remember trying to be a cross-genre artist in classical music and people being like, "Oh, but that means you're not good at classical music. That's why you're playing pop." Pop music is hella hard. And then, in the South Asian scheme of things where most conservative Muslims don't listen to music. So there's that. And then two, if you are a musician in like mainstream, you, especially I guess more in Pakistani culture than Indian culture, because Indian culture, they love their instrumentalists. But if it's Pakistani culture, if you're a singer and a dancer, and that's it. And they're often very, very insufferable about it. And like, me being a violist, if I am even like coming this close to maybe stepping on stage with them, they're threatened. And I just recently worked with somebody that kind of reminded me that that will always be the case unless my generation changes it. So seeing Nicole, who at one point talked about, I always wanted to do theater, and then, her life took a pop direction. And then when she was trying to get out of the pop direction to go back into theater, she said it was hard for people to let her audition for things. It
Hmm.
wasn't until the director, Jamie Lloyd, approached her and said, "Hey, this is the show I want to do, and I want you to be the lead." And at one point, she was like, "Oh, I don't like," kind of took offense to it because Norma Desmond is like a silent film actress who's like aged out of fame. And but in that, to be finally taken seriously and to win awards for it is huge. And it's just, I think, a reminder for anybody that is struggling with, trying to find themselves in general. It's like, keep working for it. And, the right circumstance will come, the right people will come that'll help you with things. Um, and that's just a reminder to myself too, because, and it's one of the reasons why I've seen the show a lot, because,
How many times?
I've seen the show 6 times
Okay,
now,
all right.
5 with her,
Right.
because I saw it once in London, 4 on Broadway. One night she was out, so I saw the understudy because I still wanted to see the understudy. But yeah, I'm gonna try and see it once more before it closes in a couple of weeks. Um, but like that's the thing, like I think, and also, what's not to say that like people don't re like people watch reruns of movies all the time.
Hmm.
Like I mean, I'm going just watching a rerun of a stage production. At the same time, I think it's just she sings the score well. She's reinvented the character. Um, and yeah, I met her once and she was very, very gracious. So I think that was also special. Plus, she has interacted with my stuff on social media, which is really, really
Which you
cool.
screenshot and sent me right away.
Yep. I was like, oh my gosh.
I know I was at work and I couldn't scream, but I was screaming inside. So yeah, I was like, oh my God. Yeah, I know what those interactions mean. Because I've had a
It's
few
like
with Ricky
it's a
Martin, which
very
I
strange.
screenshot and send you, by the way, as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a very strange parasocial thing sometimes, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's just like, it is art that inspires me as an artist.
Hmm.
And I think I just latch on to things that inspire me. Like when like Stephanie J. Block's another example, an artist who's a great human being. I finally met her last year. And, I told her also about the whole coming out incident with my parents. And so I think things like that. I think, over the years, I've met people that have inspired me. I've seen people perform that inspire me. And I think as an artist, it's just like it's fuel for your own artistic drive.
Right. And I think Stephanie wrote you a message, right? When you told her about your coming out with.
So she wrote me a message when I told her I listened to the episode.
Mhm.
And that was and that was actually, I included a screenshot of that in the letter. But when I met her last year, I told her like, "Hey, I wanted to tell you this in person because I didn't want to share this with you over like Instagram message." But I finally told her that, this was the story, and then she gave me a hug, and I have an autographed picture of her in my Viola case. And then, but she actually sent me a voice note for my birthday,
That was it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
which
that's
was
so sweet.
yeah, and I still have that voice note, and I'll always have that voice note.
Rizwan, I have one final question for you.
Sure.
What is the best part of being queer?
Oh, I think it's just that I've given myself full permission to be myself. And I feel like everybody has queerness in them. No one is as straight as an arrow, as much as they like to say they are. Everyone has queerness, and they should feel like they have the permission to express it. And for me, it has always been, my personality. It's always been my clothing choices. It's always been how I walk the walk and talk the talk. And I think just the element of how I love and who I love and what I'm attracted to is part of it. And it's just something that makes me me, and it feels good. And I'm glad that there's a month that celebrates it and, brings attention to it. And I'm also just glad that I've met other people like me whose stories have also touched me in such profound ways. And, I've met incredible people. And I'm just glad that, I've gotten to a point now where I can say I'm happy with who I am being a queer person. Um, I feel like even within myself, my queerness is also ever changing. And I think that's a good thing, like that's why I just say queer and I don't say like I used to always I think in our first interview, like it was like the fact that I was in a same-sex relationship, meant that I'm gay. But it also but like in the sense it's like, it's more than that. It's also just, the way I express myself. I see a beautiful woman and I will, be like feel something. I wouldn't know what to do like after I take her out for dinner maybe, but like, but like I feel like, in the sense like, I can allow myself to feel what I need to feel and how to
Mhm.
express. And I think that's the thing I love about queerness. And I feel like everybody should feel like they can express that however they want.
Dr. Rizwan Jagani, I love you so much.
Oh, me too, right?
Thank you for your friendship, your brotherhood. You'll always be my bye. I think you're an amazing person. I've seen you grow exponentially in the last couple of years. I re-listened to our first dialogue as I was driving home from the beach, and I was just like blown away at how much you've come into your wholeness, the way you own your authenticity and your, you know, relationships in your career, your activism, the way you dress. Like, it's just incredible to watch. And I will continue to follow you, learn from you, take lead from you. We'll be taking advice from you on fashion as well.
Likewise.
Yeah. You're also my go-to after watching a season of Heartstopper. I don't know how many times we've watched it.
My gosh. I actually just rewatched like my favorite scene from it last night. I was feeling so low yesterday. I mean, not because of the performance, but because of what's happening in the world. So I was
Right.
like, I need to watch something for comfort. So I just went to the exact scene in the exact episode that always makes me smile. So I just
Which
went to
one's
that.
that? Because I probably know it.
It's with Tao and Elle at the Museum de Montmartre, and it's that song Mona Lisa by MXM2 that's playing in the background. That's my go-to scene.
Hmm.
It, like, I'm sorry, Kid Connor and Joe Locke, but that's my favorite scene.
I mean, I'm sure they're not offended by it, but I mean, there's so many. I mean, Heartstopper, if you haven't seen it, is a coming of age um, TV show that's British and has a lot of queer characters. It's well diverse in its representation. And so there's something in it for everyone. You don't have to be queer to watch it, but it's very heartwarming and you always feel good when you watch it, right? And
Absolutely.
so, you know, much like you and Sunset Boulevard, I've seen it many times. I've yet to see Sunset Boulevard, and I don't think I'm going to make it to New York. But anyway,
Mhm.
Nicole, hold out for me somewhere, love. I will be there. I will find you someday, somewhere on
Yeah,
some stage, and I will hopefully catch the Nicole bug like my brother Rizwan has.
absolutely.
Rizwan, it's been a pleasure. I hope we get to speak again soon.
Like, the
Um,
pleasure is mine, the honor is mine.
you
Thank
know,
you so much.
all right, you take care. Love you lots. Bye.
Bye.
I'm Farhan Dalla. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's episode of Elevate Your Life, a transformational podcast. I hope today's conversation has elevated you in some way and inspired you to connect, move, and meditate. I'd really appreciate your support by following and rating this podcast. Come back soon and join me for another transformative conversation.